Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
It's May the 19th, and we turn our attention today to 1 Samuel 20 and 21 first, and we continue to see David fleeing from King Saul. But there's several references here to the third day that I want to point out to you, perhaps more than we've seen in a while in one selected text. Here we have it here in verse 5, the third day, verse 12, the third day, and then in verse 19, the third day. And this is that instance where David and Jonathan's friendship really comes to blossom in the text, where we get to really see the friendship, the kindred spirit between David and Jonathan. Look at what happens here. Let's start in verse 13. But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also, if I do not disclose to you and send you away, that you may go in safety. May the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. Now look at verse 14. If I am still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord. There again, the emphasis on Hesed here. Remember, we saw that all through our reading in Ruth. The steadfast love, the steadfast kindness of the Lord. It's really that steadfast love that guides the text. Anyway, verse 14. If I am still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord, that I may not die. Do not cut off your steadfast love from my house forever, when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him. Look at this. For he loved him as he loved his own soul. And so here we have Saul coming and confronting his son. In verse 33, Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. And then, of course, they meet, and look at this exchange here. Verse 38, Jonathan called after the boy, Hurry, be quick, do not stay. So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the boy knew nothing. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave the weapons to his boy and said to him, Go and carry them to the city. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap, fell on his face to the ground, bowed 3 times, and they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. And then Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, because we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever. And they rose, departed, and Jonathan went into the city. So they have this great love for one another. There is a friend, the Bible says, that sticks closer than a brother. And here we have Jonathan sticking close to David's side, knitting their hearts together, even as they're one flesh, knitting them both together, their souls loving one another. And so then let's turn our attention to chapter 21, because Jesus is going to make specific reference to this as he is making discourse with the Pharisees. Here is this instance where David takes the holy bread. Look at what happens here. The priest answered David, verse 4, I have no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread, if the young men have kept themselves from women. And David answered the priest, Truly women have been kept from us, and always when I go on an expedition. The vessels of the young men are holy, even when it is an ordinary journey. How much more today will their vessels be holy? So the priest gave him the holy bread. But there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which is removed from before the Lord, to be replaced by hot bread on the day it is taken away. Now here we have another instance, as details of the text pointing out to us. Verse 9, the priest gives David the sword of Goliath. And then David says in verse 9, There is none like that. Give it to me. And then look at the song that keeps repeating, and keep this close attention. This is what marked the transition when Saul began to eye David. From that day forward, the Bible has told us. So here we have this again. Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. David took these words to heart and was much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them. And look at this. Pretended to be insane in their hands, made marks on the doors of the gate, and he let spittle run down his beard. And so here is David being tactical in the way that he is surviving. But let's turn our attention to our New Testament reading now, John 18 through 19 here. And look at Pilate. Pilate says in verse 37, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king." And then pay attention here. "For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth." So, in other words, how does he bear witness to the truth? Remember the scene, Jesus is facing crucifixion. The cross is going to be the way that Jesus is going to bear witness to the truth. And remember this, and this is just an audacious saying, and it's an entirely Christian saying, we cannot know God except through the cross. And remember that. And Pilate said to him, and then Jesus said rather, "Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate said to him, "Estes veritas," what is truth? And then here, don't forget this, in verse 5 of chapter 19, Pilate said, "Behold the man," behold the anthropos in Greek, in other words, behold the human. And so here we have what it means to be human as we see Jesus Christ crucified for us. Jesus gave no answer, verse 9. So Pilate said to him, "You will speak to me. You will not speak to me? Do you not know that I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" And I love Jesus' answer. Jesus said, "You would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore he who delivered you from above, therefore he who delivered me over to you has the greater sin." Now let's turn our attention to our Psalm 119. Remember, we're learning the Hebrew alphabet here, and so we've seen Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Hate, Tate, and today we see Yod. And look at 74. "Those who fear you shall see me and rejoice." And then look at the emphasis again in Psalm 119, "Because I have hoped in your word." And so there again, our emphasis in Psalm 19 is a gentle reminder that we're reading the Bible for one reason, so that we can learn the Bible, learn the Word, and then hope in the Word.